The Lights in the Valley, a true Norwegian mystery told softly. Tonight, my quiet listeners, we travel to Hessdalen, and together we will try to step inside one of Norway's greatest mysteries. A mystery that no one has been able to fully solve to this day. Not to the famous fjords where the mountains fall like dark walls into silver water. Not to the bright cities with their warm windows, busy streets, and safe human noise. Tonight we travel inland, to a quiet valley in central Norway, a place of cold air, dark hills, old farms, silent roads, and long winter nights, a place called Hessdalen. At first glance, there is nothing there that should frighten anyone. No ruined castle, no abandoned asylum, no black lake with legends of monsters beneath it. Only a valley, only mountains, only sky. And yet, for generations, people in Hessdalen have seen something that science still has not fully explained. Lights, strange lights, white, yellow, red, sometimes small, sometimes bright enough to make people stop in the road and stare. Sometimes hovering silently above the valley, sometimes moving slowly, as if searching. Sometimes flashing into existence and vanishing before the mind can decide whether it has seen a miracle or a warning. Some call them natural phenomena. Some call them UFOs. Some call them plasma, electricity, reflections, gases, aircraft, tricks of the atmosphere. But the most honest answer may be the simplest and the most unsettling. No one truly knows. And this is what makes Hessdalen different from an ordinary ghost story. This is not a tale whispered only in old farmhouses. This is not only folklore. This mystery has been watched by villagers, tourists, engineers, scientists, cameras, radar, and automatic instruments. People have gone there with notebooks, lenses, detectors, and rational explanations ready in their pockets. And still, the valley keeps part of itself hidden. So lower the light, make yourself comfortable, and listen closely, because tonight we are going into the valley, where the darkness sometimes shines back. The first thing to understand about Hessdalen is that it does not look like a place built for mystery. It is not dramatic in the obvious way. It does not announce itself. It is not the sort of landscape that screams danger. It is quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. The valley lies between low mountains with scattered houses, fields, forests, and roads that seem to disappear into weather. In summer, it can look peaceful. In winter, it becomes something else entirely. Snow gathers on the ground, the air sharpens, sound travels strangely. A car passing far away may seem closer than it is. A dog barking near a farm may echo against the hills. And above everything is the sky. Large, cold, open. At night, that sky becomes almost impossibly dark. This is the kind of darkness modern people rarely meet anymore. Not city darkness, not the darkness behind curtains with street lamps glowing outside. Real darkness, the kind that makes distance uncertain. The kind that turns familiar hills into sleeping shapes. The kind where a single point of light can become a question. And in Hessdalen, questions began appearing in the sky. Reports of strange lights in the area go back far earlier than the famous wave of the 1980s. Local stories suggest that unusual lights had been noticed for a long time, long before cameras were everywhere, long before the internet turned every mystery into a shouting match. But for many years they remained mostly local, a thing people mentioned, a thing people saw, a thing that perhaps you did not speak too loudly about. Because who wants to be the neighbor who claims the valley is glowing? Then came the early 1980s. Between the end of 1981 and 1984, the lights became impossible to ignore. They were seen again and again. Not once, not twice, not by one lonely man walking home too late, but by many people over many nights. At the height of the activity, there were reports many times a week. Imagine that. Imagine living in a small valley where ordinary life continues as usual. People wake up, they make coffee, they go to work, children go to school, cars move along the road, smoke rises from chimneys, and then, after sunset, someone looks toward the hills and says, there it is again. A light, not a star, not a lamp, Not the moon, something else. At first, perhaps, you would try to explain it away. That is what most sensible people do. A car headlight, a plane, a reflect, someone with a torch, a weather balloon, a trick of tired eyes. The human mind likes explanations. It likes to close doors, but Hessdalen kept opening them. The lights were described in different ways. Sometimes they appeared as bright balls, sometimes as elongated shapes. Sometimes they seemed to hover in one place for several minutes. Sometimes they moved slowly through the valley. Sometimes they moved quickly. Sometimes they blinked out. Sometimes they seemed to divide. Sometimes they came back. And the worst kind of mystery is not the one that happens once. The worst kind is the one that repeats. Because one strange light can be dismissed. 100 strange lights become a wound in reality. People began to watch. They stood outside in the cold. They looked toward the same parts of the valley. They waited, and waiting changes a place. A dark hill is just a dark hill until you have once seen something strange above it. After that, every shadow is listening. Every small glow in the distance becomes suspect. Every ordinary light has to prove its innocence. News of the phenomenon spread. Outsiders came, curious people, skeptics, believers, journalists, researchers, those who wanted to solve the mystery, and those who secretly hoped it would never be solved at all, because some mysteries are more alive before they are explained. In 1983, Project Hessdalen was established to investigate the phenomenon seriously. This is an important part of the story, because many strange light legends around the world live only in rumor. Hessdalen became different. People brought instruments, cameras, radar, magnetometers, infrared viewers, equipment designed not to dream, but to measure. From January to February 1984, researchers carried out a field investigation in the valley. They documented dozens of observations, not all stories, not all memory, some data, some recordings, some measurements. And yet, even with instruments pointed toward the sky, the answer did not simply step forward and introduce itself. Whatever was happening in Hessdalen, it refused to be easy. Think about that for a moment. A mystery that survives witnesses is one thing. A mystery that survives instruments is something colder. Because a witness can be mistaken, a camera can be doubted, a story can grow in the telling. But when equipment is brought into a valley, when people try to strip wonder down to numbers, direction, wavelength, speed, duration, and the phenomenon still does not fit neatly into the box, then something remains. Not necessarily alien, not necessarily supernatural, but unknown. And unknown is a powerful word. It does not mean magic, it does not mean monsters. It means that the world is bigger than our explanation of it. The lights of Hessdalen have been seen in different colors: white, yellow, red. Sometimes they are bright and steady. Sometimes they blink. Sometimes they seem to drift. Some reports describe them appearing above the horizon. Others place them lower, near the sides of the valley. They do not behave with the comforting regularity of stars. They do not follow the predictable path of satellites. They do not always look like aircraft. Of course, some sightings probably are explainable. That must be said. In any place where people are looking for lights, they will sometimes see aircraft, planets, cars, reflections, distant houses, atmospheric illusions. A valley can deceive the eye. A road can bend in ways that make headlights appear to float. Cold air can distort distance. Mountains can hide and reveal sources of light. And when people expect a mystery, they can sometimes find one where there is only a machine passing far away. That is true. But it does not end the story. Because after the obvious explanations are removed, something still remains. Enough remained for Project Hessdalen to continue. Enough remained for researchers and students to return. Enough remained for an automatic measurement station to be installed in 1998, watching the sky when human eyes are tired. A machine does not believe in ghosts. A machine does not want to be famous. A machine does not get goosebumps. It simply records. And yet the fact that such a station exists tells us something important. The mystery was considered worthy of watching. That is perhaps the most elegant horror of Hessdalen. Not that people screamed. Not that something chased them. Not that a monster came down from the mountains, but that the valley made serious people look upward and admit we should keep watching. There are many theories. There always are. The first theory is the most ordinary. Misidentification. Some lights may be aircraft, some may be vehicles, some may be stars or planets seen under unusual conditions. Some may be reflections. This is not foolish. Many mysteries shrink when examined carefully. Human perception is not a clean window. It is more like old glass, useful but full of distortions. But misidentification alone does not seem to satisfy everyone who has studied the Hessdalen phenomenon. So other theories have been proposed. One idea involves natural electrical processes. The valley has a mining history and unusual geology. Some researchers have wondered whether minerals in the ground, dust in the air, moisture and electrical charge could interact in ways that produce luminous phenomena. Imagine the valley itself as a kind of natural machine, not alive, not conscious, but charged. A place where rock, air, dust, cold and electricity meet in just the wrong way, or perhaps the right one. Under certain conditions, perhaps the atmosphere lights up. A glow, a ball, a moving form of energy, something rare but natural, something we have not yet fully learned to name. Another theory suggests plasma. Plasma is often called the fourth state of matter, not solid, not liquid, not gas, but ionized gas. Charged particles, energy, light. Lightning is plasma. The sun is plasma. Neon signs use plasma. Could the Hessdalen lights be some kind of natural plasma phenomenon? A strange cousin of ball lightning? A luminous knot of charged particles formed by the local environment? It sounds almost too perfect for a mystery. Scientific, but still ghostly. A ghost made of physics. Then there are theories involving radon, dust and decay. Others involve combustion or airborne particles. Some suggest that different phenomena may be grouped under one name. Perhaps there is not one single answer. Perhaps Hessdalen is not one mystery, but many. A plane here, a reflection there, a natural electrical glow on another night. And then, perhaps, a few events still waiting outside the circle of explanation. This is what makes the story so difficult. People want one answer, one cause, one villain, one final sentence. But the world is rarely so generous. Sometimes a mystery is not a locked room with one key. Sometimes it is a valley full of doors, and some of them may open onto perfectly ordinary rooms, while one remains dark. Of course, the most famous and most controversial interpretation is the one everyone thinks of, even if they say they do not. UFOs, unidentified flying objects, or as many people say now, unidentified aerial phenomena. The word UFO does not have to mean aliens. It simply means something seen in the sky that has not been identified. But language is haunted. Say UFO, and immediately people imagine metal discs, hidden bases, government files, beings with dark eyes, and a universe leaning too close to Earth. Hessdalen has attracted people who believe the lights may not be purely natural. Some imagine visitors. Some imagine technology. Some imagine something that passes through the valley for reasons we do not understand. But the most interesting thing is this. You do not need to believe in aliens for Hessdalen to be strange. You do not need spacecraft. You do not need secret messages. You only need the lights themselves. Because an unexplained natural phenomenon can be as unsettling as anything from another world. Perhaps more unsettling. Aliens would at least be a kind of answer. But nature producing something luminous, silent and evasive in a remote valley that is more intimate. It means the unknown is not arriving from distant stars. It is already here, under the ground, in the air, between the hills, waiting for the right night. Imagine being there, not watching on a screen, not reading about it safely from a warm room, but standing in Hessdalen after sunset. The valley is cold, your breath is visible, the road behind you is empty. The houses are dark shapes, the mountains hold the sky in place. You hear nothing for a while, then perhaps a faint sound. Wind, or your own jacket, or your heart, suddenly too loud. You look toward the ridge. There is a light. At first you think it is a star, but it is too low. Then you think it is a car, but it does not follow the road. Then perhaps it brightens, or moves, or simply stays where no light should stay. You blink. It remains. You turn away for 1 second because the human mind still looks for witnesses, for confirmation, for someone else to share the impossible. When you look back, it is gone. Now tell me honestly, would you feel relieved? Or would the darkness feel larger than before? That is the true power of the Hessdalen lights. Not that they attack, not that they speak, not that they reveal themselves, but that they appear just long enough to make ordinary reality feel incomplete. A horror story usually gives you a monster. Hessdalen gives you a question, and questions can follow you home. There is another layer to this story, the people of the valley. For them, the lights were not merely entertainment. They were not just a nice mystery for tourists, researchers, and television crews. They were part of the landscape. Imagine living in a place that outsiders know because of something no one can explain. People arrive with cameras. They ask questions. They stare into your sky. Some laugh. Some believe too much. Some do not believe enough. And meanwhile, you still have your ordinary life. Your farm, your family, your work, your winter roads, your quiet evenings. And then, perhaps, the lights come again. There is something almost old-fashioned about that. For most of human history, people lived close to mysteries. The woods had spirits, the sea had voices, the mountains had trolls. The night was full of meanings. Modern life has tried to flatten the world, to label it, to illuminate it, to make every dark place into a map coordinate, every noise into a notification, every mystery into a search result. But Hessdalen resists that. It is modern and ancient at the same time. It has cameras and old fears. It has scientific stations and stories told under dark skies. It has measurements and wonder. That combination is rare. And it is exactly why the Hessdalen lights are so compelling. They stand at the border between the past and the future. A strange glow over a Norwegian valley, seen by villagers, watched by instruments, discussed by scientists, claimed by believers, doubted by skeptics, and still not fully taken apart. Today, the reports are less frequent than they were in the intense years of the early 1980s. The valley is quieter now, but quieter does not mean silent. The lights are still reported, the cameras still watch, the questions remain. And somewhere above the valley, on certain nights, something may still be moving through the dark. Perhaps it is natural. Perhaps one day we will understand it completely. Perhaps a future scientist will look back and smile at all the fear and wonder, the way we smile at old stories about comets and omens. Perhaps the answer will be beautiful, elegant, and entirely physical. Charged particles, dust, moisture, minerals, temperature, a recipe written by the Earth itself. But even then, would the mystery really die? I am not sure. Because explanation does not always destroy wonder. Sometimes it deepens it. To say plasma does not make a glowing object in a frozen valley less strange. To say electricity does not make the night less dark. To say natural phenomenon does not make nature small. In fact, it may make nature larger, more creative, more unsettling, more alive than we expected. And if it is not natural, if one day the explanation turns out to be something stranger than any of the careful theories, then Hessdalen will become not only a valley in Norway, but a doorway. For now, we do not know. And perhaps that is why the story endures. The lights do not give us enough to believe completely, but they give us too much to ignore. They are not a myth that can be brushed aside. They are not a simple trick that has been neatly closed. They are a presence, occasional, silent, measured and doubted, seen and questioned, a glow on the edge of knowledge. There is a phrase often used in science, and it is colder than any ghost story. More research is needed. It sounds plain, almost boring, but in Hessdalen it becomes something else. More research is needed because something has been seen. More research is needed because the valley does not behave. More research is needed because instruments have watched, and still the final answer has not come. More research is needed because sometimes, in the dark, the world turns on a light and refuses to explain itself. Perhaps that is what frightens us most. Not the light, the refusal. A ghost that appears can be feared. A monster that attacks can be fought. A strange object that lands can be photographed. But a light that comes and goes, leaving no clear purpose, no message, no body, no wreckage, no confession, that is a subtler kind of haunting. It leaves the imagination to do the work. And the imagination is a very old machine. It will build visitors. It will build spirits. It will build secret technology. It will build warnings. It will build angels, demons, plasma, memories, and dreams. It will fill the valley with meanings, until the valley is no longer empty. But maybe the lights mean nothing. Maybe they are simply there. That may be the most frightening possibility of all. A mystery without intention. A wonder without a message. A light that shines not for us, not against us, not to guide us, not to threaten us, but because, under certain conditions, the universe produces strange beauty and does not care whether we are ready. There is humility in that, a smallness. A reminder that even in the age of satellites, algorithms, cameras, and instant information, there are still places where people stand outside at night and say, "What was that?" Hessdalen is one of those places. A valley where the old darkness has not been completely conquered. A valley where science and folklore meet on the same road. A valley where a farmer, a tourist, a researcher, and a dreamer can all look upward and for one moment become the same kind of human being, a witness. And perhaps that is why we love stories like this. Because they restore something we lost. They make the world feel unfinished again. They remind us that the map is not the territory, that knowledge is powerful but not complete, that not every light in the dark is a lamp, and not every silence is empty. So if one night you find yourself in Norway, far from the cities, standing in a valley under a cold sky, and you see a light where no light should be, do not rush to name it. Do not rush to laugh. Do not rush to believe. Just watch. Watch the way it glows. Watch whether it moves. Watch whether the mountains seem to hold their breath. And if it vanishes, leaving you alone with the dark, ask yourself, was it something in the sky? Something in the valley? Something in the earth? Or something in us? Some ancient hunger to find meaning in light. The Hessdalen lights remain one of Norway's most persistent and fascinating mysteries. Not solved, not forgotten, still watched, still debated, still glowing at the edge of certainty. And maybe that is enough for tonight. Because some mysteries do not ask to be solved quickly. Some ask to be listened to, like wind over a valley, like snow against a window, like a story told softly after midnight. Thank you for listening, my quiet friends. Now I want to ask you, what do you think the Hessdalen lights really are? A rare natural phenomenon? Electricity in the air? Plasma born from the valley itself? Aircraft and illusions mixed with something stranger? Or do you think there may be another explanation, one we are not ready to name? Write your thoughts below. I will be reading them. And if you have ever seen a strange light in the sky, tell me where you were and what you felt in that moment. Because sometimes the most interesting part of a mystery is not only what was seen, but what it did to the person who saw it. Sleep well, stay curious, and remember, the owls are not what they seem.